Hello dear students, welcome back to the chemistry class. In this hello dear students, welcome back to the chemistry class. Previously you have learned that colligative properties, there are 4 colligative properties that you have studied. The first colligative property that you studied was relative lowering in vapor pressure. Then you studied about boiling point and freezing point, elevation in boiling point and depression in freezing point. The last colligative property you studied was osmotic pressure. Now based on that, we have the last topic in this chapter, that is abnormal molar mass. Here we will be studying about abnormal molar mass, especially for the solute. Now what is abnormal? You know, by the name itself you can say abnormal means it is not normal. Okay, it is not normal. Abnormal molar mass. You have to know that there are 2 types of molar masses. The first one is, it is called normal molar mass, or we call it expected molar mass, or we call it theoretical molar mass. This is the first type of molar mass that is there, normal or expected or theoretical molar mass. How do you calculate these molar masses? These molar masses are calculated using molecular formula. Using molecular formula, these molar masses are calculated. For example, take ethanol, C2H5OH. Now, how do you calculate the molar mass of this ethanol, C2H5OH? Now, using this molecular formula, you can calculate the molar mass. How many carbons are there? 2 carbons are there, multiplied by. What is the atomic weight of carbon? 12 plus. How many hydrogens are there? 5 plus 1, 6 hydrogens, multiplied by. What is the atomic weight of hydrogen? It is 1 plus. How many oxygens are there? Only 1 oxygen, multiplied by. What is the atomic weight of oxygen? It is 16. So when you calculate this, you'll get 46. Now this is called as normal molar mass, expected molar mass, theoretical molar mass. Okay, so this is the first type of molar mass. The second type of molar mass we have observed molar mass, or it is also called as calculated molar mass. Okay, this is the second type of molar mass we have, observed molar mass or calculated molar mass. Now how do we get these molar mass? We get this molar mass by using the formulas for MB. You derived 4 expressions. First one for relative lowering in vapor pressure. The second one for elevation in boiling point, depression in freezing point. There are 4 formulas for the calculation of molar mass of the solute. The first one, this is for the first colligative property, relative lowering in vapor pressure. The formula was MB, it is equal to WB multiplied by MA divided by, here we have WA multiplied by the colligative property, that is relative lowering in vapor pressure. Okay, this was the first expression for MB. You have already done this. Okay, now second one. This is for elevation in boiling point. So we have WB multiplied by KB, it is the constant, multiplied by 1000 divided by delta TB, it is the colligative property, multiplied by WA. This is the second expression. Now similarly, we have for depression in freezing point, just replace B with F, so you get this formula. Instead of KB, we have KF into 1000 divided by, so instead of TB, we have TF into WA. This is the third expression for the calculation of molar mass of the solute. The last one for osmotic pressure, which you calculated some numerical problems yesterday based on this. So MB is equal to WB multiplied by the constant R and T divided by osmotic pressure, the colligative property, multiplied by volume of the solution. So these are the 4 formulas that you have to remember. You will be using these formulas for the numerical problems. I told you 3 marks, definitely it will come. So remember these 4 formulas. Now, when you calculate this molar mass of the solute, it is known as observed or calculated molar mass. Okay, whatever the molar mass you calculate using these formulas, it is known as observed or calculated molar mass. Okay, so we have 2 types of molar masses here. This is expected or normal or theoretical molar mass. How do you calculate this? Using molecular formula. And how do you calculate observed or calculated molar mass? Using these expressions for colligative properties. Now, sometimes you observe that the both molar masses values, the values of both these molar masses are not equal. For example, here the molar mass of the ethanol, it must be 46 because it is calculated using molecular formula. It should always be 46. But sometimes when you calculate using these expressions, using these formulas, it may be found that the molar mass of ethanol, it is equal to 40. Okay, sometimes you may get 40, you may get 50, you may get 60. Okay, it depends on so many factors. So if let us assume that the molar mass of the ethanol you have calculated using this formula, it is 40. Now you can see that this molar mass, it is not equal to this molar mass. So sometimes the normal molar mass, it is not equal to observed molar mass. Then we call the observed molar mass as abnormal molar mass. Abnormal means not normal. What is the normal molar mass here? 46. But this is not 46, it is 40. Hence we call it abnormal. It is not normal. So abnormal molar mass means when observed molar mass is not equal to normal molar mass, we call this abnormal molar mass. Okay, so these are the 2 types of molar masses we have. When observed molar mass is not equal to normal molar mass, what we call this? We call this abnormal molar mass. Now, when do you get abnormal molar mass? Why these molar masses are not equal? There are 3 conditions that we have to study. So before moving forward with the conditions, there is another thing you have to study here. Now, look at the MB here. So MB is here and this is the colligative properties. It is relative lowering in vapor pressure. Now this colligative properties, it is in the denominator side. So we can write MB is inversely proportional to P naught A minus PA divided by P naught A. Okay, so MB, molar mass of the solute, it is inversely proportional to this colligative property. Similarly, MB, here you can see that this is the colligative property. It is elevation in boiling point. Again, it is in the denominator side. So MB is inversely proportional to elevation in boiling point. Similarly here, this colligative property, depression in freezing point, it is also in denominator side. So we say that MB is inversely proportional to depression in freezing point. And similarly, the last one, pi, it is nothing but osmotic pressure. It is also in the denominator side. Hence we write MB is inversely proportional to pi. Now, what are these terms? They are nothing but colligative properties. So writing all these, we can generally write MB is inversely proportional to colligative property, right? MB is inversely proportional to colligative property. If the value of colligative property increases, MB decreases. If the value of colligative property decreases, MB, molar mass, increases. So this is very important. You remember this. Molar mass of the solute is always inversely proportional to colligative property. Now, You have studied that colligative property, I'll write CP. Okay, colligative property, you know that they depend on number of solute particles. Colligative property, it depends only on number of solute particles. We say that colligative property is directly proportional to number of solute particles. If the number of solute particles increases, the value of colligative property increases. Now, in the place of colligative property here, we can substitute number of solute particles. So, combining both these equations, we have MB is inversely proportional to. So, instead of colligative property, I can write number of solute particles. So, this also you have to remember, very important. One thing, MB, molar mass of the solute, is inversely proportional to colligative property. Similarly, the molar mass of the solute MB is inversely proportional to number of solute particles. If the number of solute particles increases, the value of molar mass decreases. So these are the two things you have to remember. The first thing is that there are two types of molar masses: normal molar mass, abnormal molar mass. Sometimes the values of these molar mass may not be equal. So if observed molar mass is not equal to normal molar mass, we call this abnormal molar mass. The second thing you have to remember is the value of molar mass. It is inversely proportional to the value of colligative property. We know that colligative property depends on number of solute particles. Colligative property is directly proportional to number of solute particles. So combining these two equations, we get the MB, molar mass of the solute, is inversely proportional to number of solute particles. Now, we move forward with the conditions for the calculation of accurate molar mass. Why do we get abnormal molar mass? The first condition is the solution must be dilute. When you are calculating molar mass of the solute, you have to consider dilute solutions. Then you will get normal molar mass. If you don't consider dilute solutions, you will get abnormal molar mass. So, if you have dilute solutions, you will get accurate value of molar mass. Okay, if you consider dilute solution, I was already explained about dilute solution and concentrated solution. Dilute solution means the concentration of the solute will be very negligible, very less. Okay, the concentration of the solute present in this solution is very less. Concentrated solution means the concentration of the solute is very high. For example, 1 gram of sugar in 100 gram of water. You can see this is just 1 gram. Solute is just 1 gram. We call it dilute solution. Whereas 50 gram of sugar in 100 gram of water. You can see the amount of sugar is very high here. So it is concentrated solution. If the concentration of the sugar is very less, it is dilute solution. If the concentration of the solute is very high, it is known as concentrated solution. So, when you are calculating MB, when you are calculating the molar mass of the solute, if you take dilute solution, you will get accurate value. You can accurately measure the MB. You can accurately measure the molar mass of the solute. Whereas if you take concentrated solution, what you will get? You will get abnormal molar mass. When you take concentrated solution, you get abnormal molar mass. When you take dilute solution, you will get normal molar mass. You get accurate value of molar mass. Now, why do we get abnormal molar mass when we take concentrated solution? Okay, why do you get abnormal molar mass when we take this solution? It is because in concentrated solutions, the solute particles, they will interact. The solute particles, they will interact with other solute particles and solvent molecules. Okay, I told you in concentrated solution, the solute particles will be in higher numbers. So what happens? One solute particle will interact with another solute particle. One solute particle will interact with another solvent particle. So in concentrated solutions, there will be interactions between solute and solute particles, between solute and solvent particles. As a result, what we get? We get abnormal molar mass because of this interaction. Okay, so remember that the solution should always be dilute if you are calculating the molar mass of the solute. If you take concentrated solution, what you will get? You will get abnormal molar mass. That means the observed molar mass will not be equal to normal molar mass. Now this is the first condition. Now the second condition, is the solute should not undergo association. Okay, the solute particles, they must not associate. So what do you mean by association? Association means combining. Two or more solute particles will combine together to form a single molecule, a single particle. For example, there are 10 solute particles. Let us assume that there are 10 solute particles. These 10 solute particles, they will combine together. Okay, they will combine together to form one big solute particle. Okay, there are, okay, I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These are 10 solute particles. What they do? They will associate together. They will combine together to form one big solute particles. So how many solute particles are here? 1. How many particles are here? Only 1. So what is happening here? The number of solute particles is decreasing. Okay, 10 solute particles are combining together to form only one solute particle, big solute particle. So what is happening? When solute particles undergo dissociation, what happens? The number of solute particles decreases. Okay, remember, when the solute particles undergo association, when the solute particles will combine together, what happens to the number of solute particles? The number of solute particles decreases. Now, previously you have studied, we have studied that molar mass of the solute is inversely proportional to number of solute particles. Okay, just previously I explained this. Molar mass of the solute is inversely proportional to number of solute particles. Now what is happening here? Number of solute particles, it is decreasing. As a result, what happens? The molar mass increases because it is inversely proportional. So molar mass of the solute increases. Why does it increase? Because the number of particles are decreasing. And why the number of particles are decreasing? Because of association. Okay, so remember, when the solute particles undergo association, the molar mass of the solute increases. That means when the solute particles undergo association, observed molar mass will always be greater than normal molar mass. Okay, when the solute particles are undergoing association, remember that observed molar mass will always be greater than normal molar mass. Why it will be greater? Because molar mass is increasing. Okay, molar mass of the solute is increasing. And why it is increasing? Because the number of solute particles are decreasing because of association. So this is a very important thing that you have to remember. Okay, so when solute particles undergo association, when the solute particles associate together, combine together to form one big solute particles, the number of solute particles decreases. As a result, molar mass increases. As a result, the observed molar mass will be greater than normal molar mass. We call it abnormal molar mass. When the observed molar mass is not equal to normal molar mass, we call it abnormal molar mass. Now, what was the first condition? The solution must be dilute. Okay, if the solution is not dilute, if the solution is concentrated, we get abnormal molar mass. Now the second condition, when do we get abnormal molar mass? When the solute particles undergo association. When the solute particles undergo association, we get abnormal molar mass. So in order to get normal molar mass, what should happen? The solute particles should not undergo association. Now, the last condition. Third condition, the solute particles should not undergo dissociation. This is the last condition. The solute particles should not undergo dissociation. Dissociation means splitting. Okay, so here one big solute particle will split into two solute particles. For example, KCl, it will split into ions K plus and Cl minus. How many particles are here? One particle. And how many particles are here? Two particles. One is K plus, another one is Cl minus. So here only one particle, here there are two particles. This is known as dissociation. This is known as ionization. Similarly, you can write CaCl2. How many particles are here? Only one mole is there, only one molecule is there, CaCl2. It will split into Ca2 plus and 2 Cl minus. And how many particles are here? This is 1 plus this is 2. Total 3 molecules. So one solute particle is splitting into 3 solute particles. One solute particle is splitting into 2 solute particles. As a result, during dissociation of solute, what happens? The number of solute particles increases. Right, the number of solute particles, it is increasing. 1 is becoming 2, 1 is becoming 3. Okay, so when solute particles undergo dissociation, remember that the number of solute particles increases. Now, you know that the molecular mass of the solute, that is Mb, it is inversely proportional to number of solute particles. Okay, Mb, it is inversely proportional to number of solute particles. If the solute particle increases, the value of Mb decreases. So during dissociation, what is happening? The number of solute particles, it is increasing. So when the number of solute particle increases, the value of Mb decreases. Okay, so remember this. When solute particles undergo dissociation, first thing what happens? The number of solute particles increases. When the number of solute particle increases, remember that the molar mass of the solute decreases. As a result, in this case, observed molar mass will be less than normal molar mass. Okay, observed molar mass, the calculated molar mass, it will be less than normal molar mass. Why it will be less? Because the molar mass is decreasing. Why the molar mass is decreasing? Because the solute particles, number of solute particles, it is increasing. And why the number of solute particles are increasing? Because the solute particles are undergoing dissociation. Okay, they are multiplying. So these are the three conditions. The first one was the solution must be dilute. If the solution is not dilute, what you will get? You will get abnormal molar mass. The second condition, the solute particle should not undergo association. If the solute particles undergo association, what you will get? You will get abnormal molar mass. The third condition, the solute should not undergo dissociation. If they undergo dissociation, what you will get? You will get abnormal molar mass. So these are the three conditions to get accurate value of Mb. If these conditions are not followed, what you will get? You will get abnormal molar mass. Abnormal molar mass means the observed molar mass may be smaller or may be greater than normal molar mass. Remember that during dissociation, observed molar mass will be smaller than normal molar mass. During association, the observed molar mass will be greater than normal molar mass. Now, we have Van't Hoff factor. Now, in order to measure the extent of association or dissociation of solute particles, Van't Hoff, the scientist Van't Hoff, he put forward a factor known as Van't Hoff factor. Using this Van't Hoff factor, which is symbolized by I, using this symbol, using this factor, you can measure the extent of dissociation or the extent of association of solute particles. Now, Van't Hoff factor I, it is equal to normal molar mass divided by observed molar mass. Observed, also known as abnormal molar mass, right? So this is the formula for Van't Hoff factors. It is the ratio of normal molar mass to the observed or abnormal molar mass. Now, when there is no association or dissociation, there is no association or dissociation. When there is the solute particles, when they are not undergoing association or dissociation, what happens? Normal molar mass, it is equal to observed molar mass. Okay, when the solute particles are not undergoing association or dissociation, the normal molar mass, it is equal to abnormal molar mass. At that time, I will be equal to 1. Okay, what is the value of I? When there is no association or dissociation, I, it is equal to 1. Now, when there is association, what happens? The observed molar mass is greater than normal molar mass. Just previously I explained, observed molar mass, it will be greater than normal molar mass when the solute particles undergo dissociation, association. Okay, at that time I will be smaller than 1. Okay, when the solute particles undergo dissociation, what is the value of Van't Hoff factor? Van't Hoff factor is smaller than 1 for association. Next, for dissociation, when the solute particles undergo dissociation, I told you, observed molar mass is less than normal molar mass. For example, this may be 10, this may be 5, right? So observed molar mass, it is less than normal molar mass. So what you will get here? You will get 2. That means it is greater than 1. I will be greater than 1 when the solute particles undergo dissociation. So this is Van't Hoff factor I. Remember the formula, then remember the values of I, Van't Hoff factor. When there is no association or dissociation, both the molar masses are equal. So if this is 10, this will also be 10. So what you will get? You will get 1. So when there is no association or dissociation, I, it is equal to 1. Now, when there is association, during association, I told you the observed molar mass will be greater than normal molar mass. For example, if this is 20, it will be 10. So, observed molar mass, it is greater than normal molar mass. So, what you will get here? You get 0.5, which is less than 1. So, for association of solute particles, I will be less than 1. And the last one, dissociation. I already explained this. If this is 10, it will be 5. When the solute particles undergo dissociation, observed molar mass will be less than normal molar mass. So if this is 5, it will be 10 or 9 or 8. Okay. So what you'll get here? You'll get 2, which is obviously greater than 1. So please remember these values, very important. When there is no association or dissociation of solute particles, Van't Hoff factor, it is equal to 1. When there is association of solute particles, when the solute particles are combining together, the value of Van't Hoff factor is less than 1. And when there is a dissociation, the value of Van't Hoff factor, it will be greater than 1. So this is about Van't Hoff factor. Remember the formula. It is given by normal molar mass divided by observed molar mass. There is another formula for this. If you are taking colligative property, now I will be equal to, you know that colligative property is inversely proportional to molar mass. So instead of molar mass, if you are taking colligative property, this formula will be reversed. So I will be equal to observed colligative property divided by normal colligative property. Why we will get reverse here? Because colligative property is inversely proportional to molar mass of the solute. So if you are taking molar masses here, it is normal divided by observed. If you are taking colligative property here, it is observed divided by normal. So both these formulas you have to remember. They are very useful for the calculation in numerical problems. Now, the last part of this Van't Hoff factor, here I have written the 4 formulas for colligative property. This is the first colligative property, relative lowering in vapor pressure. So this is relative lowering in vapor pressure. It is equal to molar mass of the solute. You already know this. We have derived this equation before. You also know the formulas for elevation in boiling point and depression in freezing point. Delta Tb is equal to Kb multiplied by molality. Delta Tf, that is depression in freezing point, it is equal to constant Kf multiplied by again molality. Both are very similar. Here you have boiling point, here you have freezing point. The last one, osmotic pressure, you know this. Osmotic pressure, pi, it is equal to concentration multiplied by RT. R stands for gas constant, T stands for temperature. All these formulas, you already studied this, used for several numerical problems. Now, these are the formulas that must be followed when there is no dissociation or association. So, when there is no dissociation or association of solute particles, when solute particles are not undergoing dissociation or association, you must follow these formulas. But however, when there is association or dissociation ಮತ್ತೆ association ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? So according to Van't Hoff's factor, when there is dissociation or association, you must add Van't Hoff factor. So you must multiply Van't Hoff factor in each formula. Multiply I into multiply. So you have to introduce Van't Hoff factor in each formula when there is association or dissociation. Okay, so these are the formulas you have to remember. When you have to multiply I here, when there is association or dissociation of solute particles. If there is no association or dissociation, no need to use I. Okay, so remember all these 4 formulas, which will be helpful for the solving of numerical problems. In the numerical problems where there is association or dissociation of solute particles, then you have to use this I, Van't Hoff factor.